And as residents, emergency crews, and relief organizations sift through the wreckage Hurricane Ian left in its wake, the spotlight now shines on Washington to make sure funding is available when needed. But despite the destruction in their home state, Florida Republican Senator Rick Scott and every House GOP member, 16 in total, voted against a stopgap budget bill this week that included an additional $18.8 billion into FEMA's disaster relief fund. The question, is this a good look for Republicans in Florida's time of need? For more, we are joined by Niall Stanage, White House columnist at The Hill. Niall, thank you so much for being here.
Good to be here, Natasha.
So why are Senator Scott and other Republicans saying that they voted against this bill?
For reasons that are unrelated to its aid for FEMA. Senator Scott in particular has said that if the aid to FEMA provision was spun off and given a standalone vote, that he would have backed it. The other Republicans are arguing two things in essence. One, that just allowing the government to go forward broadly, funded as before, enables the Biden administration to continue with its agenda untrammeled, and obviously Republicans oppose that. There is also a bit of congressional back and forth because this new continuing resolution to fund the government ends in mid-December, and many Republicans would have preferred that extended into the new year to a point where they hope to control the House of Representatives.
Interesting. Well, in the eyes of Republicans, how does this stopgap measure differ from ones in the past that averted government shutdowns?
Well, I don't think it does to a great extent, except that Democrats are in control of all the levers of government, the White House, the Senate and the House of Representatives for right now. There has been a history of Republican members in particular expressing skepticism of specific aid measures in the past. None more plainly than back in 2012 when Superstorm Sandy hit New York and New Jersey very, very hard. At that time, we had Governor DeSantis, who was then a congressman, complaining about a put it on the credit card tendency. And other prominent Republicans like Senator Ted Cruz also opposed to aid in that instance.
You know, I want to talk about the other back and forth that we're tracking right now. An aide to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis calling out Vice President Kamala Harris for suggesting distribution of storm aid should first go to poorer communities and communities of color. He said that, or rather the aide is accusing her of causing undue panic with that statement. If you go back, though, and look at DeSantis's record while in Congress, he voted against aid to help victims of Hurricane Sandy. So why the about-face now?
So I think the point with Vice President Harris is a little different in that the argument there is that is she suggesting that aid be dispersed with a view toward looking at impoverished communities or communities of colour and giving them aid first? Now, I think her answer that has become so controversial was a bit more complex than it is being portrayed. I think she was talking about the broad issue of environmental justice and long-term resilience for some communities. But the issue that has become a political hot button or political debate is this suggestion that aid would go first to, as I say, marginalised or low-income communities or communities of colour. Governor DeSantis's campaign aide saying that that isn't the case, that FEMA aid is available to everyone, which is indeed a true statement.
And Niall, natural disasters like this, certainly an opportunity to put politics aside, right, and for both sides of the aisle to come together. Are we seeing that in the way that Biden and DeSantis are working together now? And is all of this just a distraction on the side? Or what would you say? How is this going so far?
I think in relation to President Biden and Governor DeSantis, they have, to some extent, put their other political differences aside. There was some awkwardness at the start when the president had not called the governor. Then he did so. They have suggested that they will be able to transcend their political differences. But I don't think we should underestimate the intensity of those differences. Governor DeSantis has criticised President Biden in very, very personal terms at times. I also don't think it would do Governor DeSantis's 2024 ambitions a great deal of good to wed himself very closely to President Biden. So they're transcending politics to an extent, but I don't think you can ignore the political dynamics that are at play.
Yeah, that's an interesting dance and an interesting balance that's happening right now. I do want to note we had planned to speak with Congressman Byron Donalds representing Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Bonita Springs, and Naples. Unfortunately, he's having some connection issues at this time, so we're going to try to bring him back a little later in the show. Niall Stanage, I know you're going to stick around as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Natasha.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.